All right, let's go, Julio.
Hello,
How are
nice
you,
to
my
see
friend?
you.
Great to
I'm
see
better
you too.
now. Better now.
I'm always happy to be in your presence. Your joy is contagious, and I'm just so happy to see you, brother.
Oh, likewise, likewise. You have a special place in my heart after I
Oh,
dressed in drag for the very first time with you, for those of you who are listening.
yes. My drag daughter joined the House of
Yes.
London.
House of London, baby.
We're definitely going to get into that story. And actually, this is a good way to start in those vibrations, which is to ask, who are you in this moment? But tell me by describing the perfect drag avatar.
Hmm. I'm gonna go with the name that I was given by you and graced by the rest of the group, which was Easton Turner.
Mm-hmm.
I'm feeling very Tina Turner vibes, given her
Mm-hmm.
passing and given what she represents for so many of us, like stepping into your truth and being audacious in how you express yourself. And I think
Mm-hmm.
I'm really feeling the energy of that right now.
Mm-hmm.
So that that's what comes up
Yeah,
for me.
it strikes me you took that name shortly before her death, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. And I feel the at first I was like, that doesn't make any sense. But now upon her passing, as I've rewatched
Mm.
interviews and watched her
Mm.
concerts and really gotten to know the woman that is Tina
Mm.
and what she represents, I really have such a deep appreciation. So I'm definitely going with Easton Turner.
Mm. I love it. And if you could describe her look, so like bringing that more into this
Mm.
present moment, like how you're feeling today, like what would her look be to embody that feeling?
Oh, nice tight dress with
Mm-hmm.
lots of color and beautiful heels where I can dance and strut my stuff in.
Mm.
Nice short bobby hair, some beautiful glasses and some
Love it.
pearls.
Love it. And that bitch could dance. My goddess, I've been
Yes.
watching some video clips too, and she just has the spirit moving through her.
Yes, she
Oh.
does. And she's unashamed in it in a world where
Mm,
I felt so much shame even just getting up on stage dressing in drag. And there was a lot of
mm,
parallels for me around what full expression looks like and feels like for someone like Tina. We admire that in her. But yet here I was trying to dress up and get in front of a group of people where when we were at a conference and dress in drag, and I felt like uncomfortable at first. It's funny how that works.
mm, hmm. Well, since we're getting into it, let's get into it. So, well, first, so let me share my drag avatar and then let's circle
Okay.
back to this story. So,
Okay.
my drag avatar, as I mentioned, I just got back from Kauai about 24 hours ago, and I'm just
Mm,
still feeling that island spirit today.
yeah.
I rode my bike to the beach and sang to the ocean because that was my ritual in
Oh.
Kauai. And I'm feeling the aloha spirit still in my heart, the beautiful ocean breeze and the rainbows and just all the green. So my drag
Mm,
avatar would be wearing this beautiful flowy green dress that's almost like made out of the beautiful leaves that adorn those giant trees.
mm,
So she's just like feeling her aloha spirit in this beautiful green flowy dress made out of leaves with a gorgeous pink lei and gorgeous black straight hair. And she's
mm.
just in the love of nature and love of connection and love of spirit. That's my drag avatar today. I just want to keep holding on to that aloha spirit because it feels so good, man.
Oh, beautiful. I can feel and hear Hawaiian music playing in my head.
Yes, yes, yes. Same.
Great.
So yeah, so let's circle back. So we were at Easton Mountain, the retreat center I used to run that hosts the International Gay Coaches Conference, which Julie and I are both part of the Gay Coaches Alliance, and we attend this conference. We met last year. We were there this year together. and there was a drag show, very much because I think you initiated that, or not a drag show, a talent show that you initiated,
Yeah.
correct?
Yes.
So you were already, in this initiatory process of self-expression, right? By creating this invitation for folks to share their talents, which is something that was brand new for the conference. So
Mm.
I already see you in that moment as a champion for self-expression. And then you were asked
Mm.
to host, correct? And then we're on our
Mm.
way to the conference and started talking about this drag possibility.
Mm.
So take the story from there.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it was my idea, but the intention of the idea was just to make a playlist and play, help people transition from one act to the next in the back
Mm.
room and be in the background. But you're right, it was a moment for self-expression, and everyone else had a different expectation of what I was supposed to do. That emceeing comes with being in the front and comes
Mm.
with dressing in drag. So what began as like just seed planting turned into, okay, well, you're gonna get up there and you're gonna dress in drag, so you better figure this shit out. So that's when we met earlier that night in the room and just started trying things on, just starting
Mm.
trying things on. And I'm very grateful to you for embracing me and creating a safe space for me to
Mm.
just play,
Mm.
and have some fun with what it feels like to be creative and do
Mm.
stuff outside the box and to just lean into it. So that was a beautiful experience for me. So we went into the room, we tried a
Mm.
few things on. The first thing didn't work, second thing didn't work, the third thing finally landed. Easton Turner started to pick up steam. We get on stage, the show is a huge success. And yeah, it was a beautiful experience for me. It was my first time ever dressing in drag.
Amazing. And so, yeah, let's break it down a little bit. So, first of all, when we're talking about the room, right, we're talking about a drag room. So, this was part of what I left behind in my legacy at Easton Mountain was that used to be this like unused office. We turned it into a drag closet, a giant drag closet. And I've seen and supported many men in having incredible transformations in this space,
Mm,
and it was a total honor and pleasure to be there to support you through that transformation. And I got to say, most men who have their experience in the drag closet, they do their experience and then they maybe go to dinner, or maybe they go to upstairs and go trot around for 5 minutes and then come back and
mm.
put their boy clothes back on. But you, for your very first time in drag, were then going from the drag closet to
Yeah.
the stage to
Yeah.
perform and speak in front of this huge group of men. So I gotta say, like, that's doing it. That's like really
Yeah.
stepping into the courageous self-expression. So kudos to
Well,
you for
thank you.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for saying that, because
Mm.
it's all part of this bigger journey that I'm on, that so many of
Mm.
us are on, which is to lean into the discomfort of something. I'm trying
Mm.
to live from a space of, when I feel resistance, it just means it's an opportunity to explore something
Mhm.
that's bringing up resistance, so that was a wonderful opportunity for me to step outside my comfort zone and to get comfortable in front of a stage, in front of a group of people, in a way that I didn't do otherwise. So yeah, thank you for that.
And so what would you say was your resistance in those moments? What was coming up for you?
I think the resistance was the stories in my head that I was telling myself is, oh, I don't do that. People like me don't do that. Or that's not important. Like, I don't need to do that. I don't need to wear that. I don't have to bring that attention to myself. Or, oh, that's
Mm.
unnecessary. That's unnecessary. These were the stories going through my head. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, it makes me think of that word extra, right? That there's
Mm.
this negative connotation sometimes with this word extra, that if we are really going above and beyond in our self-expression and drawing attention to ourselves, that we are being extra. And that there's something wrong about that. There's something bad about that, that we have been conditioned to believe that we need to just kind of conform and match the status quo
Yes.
and not, stick our necks up too high.
Yeah.
And there's so much to celebrate in the extraness that is inherent in drag.
Yeah. Yeah, that resonates. And similarly, the extra is just more of the whole. Like
Mhm.
it's more of the full expression of yourself, right? Like
Mhm.
what was underneath the resistance for me, the opportunity that was underneath the resistance was, oh, interesting, here's a place where you're
Mhm.
uncomfortable expressing this version of you.
Mhm.
So let's play here. Let's lean into that and let's see
Mhm.
what that unearths for you. And, you know, I have an extra little kick in my step now because of
Mm.
that moment, because I realize it's okay. No one died.
Mhm.
Everything is fine. I'm
Mhm.
I'm here and I've survived it. And so I actually have to do the work going back to the moment and recognizing, okay, those thoughts, they were there to protect you or they're there to signal something for you, but they were not
Mhm.
serving you. And
Mhm.
you're able to not attach to them. They can come and
Mhm.
go. I don't have to attach and embody and become one with that thought. I can choose to do something else. So that's
Mhm.
really the learning that came for me from that experience.
I love that. And yeah, it's something I speak with my clients about frequently is that the alchemy is often in the action, right?
Mm,
That the you didn't actually end up having a big long therapy session or coaching session or ceremony or plant medicine experience
yeah.
that helped you get rid of those thoughts or helped you meet those that resistance head on. You just took action. You courageously took action in the face of those negative thoughts, in the face of those thoughts that were doubting yourself, right? You
Mm,
took action and the alchemy was in the action. And,
mhm.
so I often talk about it as like the high dive, like, you're afraid to go off the high dive because, yeah, there's a part of you that thinks you're going to die. And then you go off the
Yes.
high dive and then you didn't die. And so your nervous system adjusts and you develop new neural pathways, but you're still afraid the next time and the next time and the next time.
Yeah.
But you would have a really fucking high dive, right? So,
Yeah.
like
It
the
was,
action,
yeah.
there's one action that's just like going and prancing around for 5 minutes, but to actually do it in front of a group of men and then to receive the affirmation and validation and celebration that you received on the other end of that, I imagine is what made that experience so transformative for you, or part of what made it so transformative for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mm,
And you know, that's just a micro moment of what we all really yearn for and need, which is
mm,
deep connection and support for people to see your gifts and believe in your capacity
mm,
to step into the fullness of yourself in a world where we're
mm,
told stay small, don't share
mm,
that, don't conform, so on and so forth. So yeah,
mm,
it was a big aha moment for me, one that I'll
mm.
remember for a while.
Beautiful. Yeah, what that brings up for me, what you just shared, is this idea that extra is actually us getting closer to our full expression of self, right? That
Yeah.
we are all inevitably playing small on some level. And so it's
Yes.
like we need those moments of extraness to get even close to who we really are. Right.
Mm,
And drag is a wonderful vehicle to support us in moving into that because it's this external thing that we get to play with that brings out these different qualities and energies that are dormant within us. And I'm curious, for many folks, for many men, drag, the resistance that comes up for them around drag is femphobia, is the
yeah.
fear of appearing, feminine. And I'm curious if any of that was happening for you as well, or if it was just kind of general, attention grabbing.
Sure, there was definitely appearing there was an energy of that
Mm,
appearing feminine. I'm also not being taken seriously.
mm,
You know, I think there was a part of me that's like, oh, but that what does that say about me? It says I'm not serious. And what do you mean? I've built
mm,
this whole identity over being very serious. So what does it say if I go out there in a dress and some makeup and heels about my
mm.
seriousness? So that was also, and which could be related to the masculinity element of
Sure.
it. You know, they're related, but
Mhm,
I'm just sharing what's coming up from the heart.
mhm,
And a bit of um there was also a bit of longing for, like, this is not the first time I've considered this and chose intentionally not to do it. And it's one
mm,
of these like, oh, there's a part of me that's always wanted to do it, but then a part of me was like, I'm just gonna I'm just gonna stay in the bucket of like too cool for school. Like I'll pay to go see
Mm,
a show and to go do that and to watch it and give someone a few
mm,
dollars, but that won't be me. You know,
mhm.
that's not what I do.
Like you've made a story that, yeah,
Yeah, is a
that's not
story.
me.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm. Yeah, and then the other thing I hear in that is this, I love what you're sharing about like, oh, but if I do that, then I'm not perceived as serious, and I've built this brand as serious. So it's this, and it's very similar to, if I do that, then I'm not masculine, right? And so it's
Yes.
like remembering that we can hold these two dichotomies true at the same time, that you can be serious and hold on to that brand of serious while also being fun, playful, extra, and a wild queen, hilarious, not to mention
Yes.
queen on stage, in the same way that you can be femme and embrace your divine femininity, but
Yeah.
you can also be divinely masculine,
Yeah.
that these things can, and this is again getting us closer to being all of who we are, that it's not about choosing one of these binaries, it's about embracing the fullness of all that is.
Yes.
Mm.
Exactly. Exactly. And the inner child really came out for me. I felt
Mm-hmm.
a lot of that. You know, I actually felt a lot of empathy for what's happening right now with drag bans and the protests and
Mm-hmm.
the discomfort around drag performers being around children. I actually felt the inner child of myself come out. The 13-year-old,
Mm.
the 10-year-old with the microphone who likes to play and who likes to have a good time and who likes to tinker and explore and step into a different version of myself, if only for a few moments. Like that really came out
Mm.
for me in such a beautiful way.
Yeah, I love that you're sharing that. And it is so ironic that there's this huge fear around drag queens and kids when it is such a playful art form. It is
Yeah.
something that kids naturally do. They naturally are
Mhm.
doing drag actually
Yes.
when they're dressing up. Like the kids can't be
Yeah.
sequestered to just Halloween to wear those costumes. They're like putting on their She-Ra armor to like walk to the park with dad on a random Sunday in May,
Yeah.
that kids embrace drag. And so the idea that, people are afraid that kids will be exposed to drag, kids are already drag queens. They
Yeah.
already are little
Yeah.
drag queens.
Yeah.
Playing dress up and experiencing what it is to be in that magical transformative energy of drag is something they're choosing in a beautiful way. And we can learn so much from kids and the way that they are with drag.
Yes.
Mm,
Yeah, exactly. Entirely that.
mm.
Yeah.
So good. So, yes, I'm very proud of you. And it was such a thrill and delight. And I'm curious, do you see yourself experimenting with this again in the future?
Oh, for sure. For
Yay.
sure. I for sure see myself experimenting and even watching Tina. Like I said, the Tina videos, there's a lot of
Mm,
this coming up for me. And as my business grows and expands beyond coaching to speaking, I have a TEDx talk coming up in August, and I'm the universe is once I have made the decision to lean into the discomfort and to see every moment of discomfort and tension as an opportunity to explore, the universe is putting in my path all of these different
mm,
things that is helping me sharpen myself for the moment to come. And so
mm,
the drag was one example of that. Okay, well, I have a
mhm,
TED talk in August. You better get your shit together. You need to figure out your story. You need to get on stage. You need to learn how to be present. You need to learn how to be
mm,
comfortable being up there. So I'm going to put some lipstick and a dress on and get up there. And I'm
mm,
going to start today. I'm going to make today
mm.
day one.
Hell
And so
yeah.
I think that this is the first of many different things that I'm going to be working on: improv,
Mm, mm,
drag, being in terms of claiming my voice and my expression
mhm,
of myself. Yeah.
mhm. Yeah, and I love that perspective that the universe gives us these gifts, which come in the form of mm, hoops of fire that we have to jump
Yeah.
through, right? They come in the gift of really uncomfortable, often scary opportunities, right?
Yeah.
That don't always look like opportunities. They look like rings of fire that we don't want to jump through. And so, something that inspires me about you is this commitment to leaning into what is discomfort, seeing those moments that bring up fear as opportunities for growth. And it's such a shift. It's like when humans can have that shift, when individuals can have that change in perspective, like that's the let's go moment, right? That's the moment of
Yes.
like, okay, now you get to really grow.
Yes. And that is, if I had to summarize across all my years working in tech,
Mm,
next to the greatest leaders in technology at Apple, Google, Tumblr, Airbnb, Lyft, the one thread that runs through all of the highest performing, highest achieving, most heart centered executives and leaders at all these companies is that through line of whatever is happening to you is happening for you, and your
mm,
job is to accept the moment for what it is and merge with the moment and use the moment to help you figure out, okay, what's the next move? What do we learn
mm,
from this? We launch a product and it fails, it doesn't work. Google Glass was a great example. I worked on
mm,
that early days, and it was cool, it was sexy. We had a couple of, we put it in the Vogue fashion show and did some
mm,
commercials and some hoopla around it, but it actually ultimately died. It didn't work.
mm,
And then years later, that tech is now being used in stuff today as we
mm,
lean into AI. But um failure, there is a world where you can, it feels like failure when you're in it, but there's a world where you can choose to recognize that there is no such thing as failure. It is
mm,
merely life trying to nudge you in another direction. It
mm,
feels like failure and sounds like failure and hurts like failure,
mm,
but when you are ready, you can choose to look at that moment as oh, what is this here to teach me? What is this here to show me? And
mm,
how does this help me unlock an insight that allows me to move into what's next? And all of the great leaders at all these brands and all these tech
mm,
companies, the reason why they're so successful is because that is the relentless driving philosophy behind how decisions are made and what happens when you bump up against failure.
mm. Yeah, I love that. And it reminds me now of what we were talking about with the alchemy and the action, where yes, there is the possibility of you doing the drag and getting all the celebration and then the alchemy happening there. And there's also the possibility of you doing the drag and it failing in some way,
Yeah,
or creating these Google glasses and then failing in some way. And there's still possibility of alchemy even in that, right? As long as you're seeing the learnings, you're gaining
yeah.
the wisdom and the lessons inherent in that perceived failure.
Exactly.
Mm,
Exactly. There's wisdom all around us. Life is one big
mm,
classroom. It's one big classroom.
mm,
And we get to be here. I think I really took that in during COVID, seeing the rate at which people were dying and feeling
mm,
helpless as I would update
mm,
slide decks in my work job, remote, seeing what's happening around COVID, that
mm,
just having your breath and just getting to be here is such a gift and an honor and magical and lovable just being here. And so
mm.
that's really done a lot for me.
Oh yeah, beautiful. Yeah, it's such a simple piece, right? To recognize the gift of life. And if we can be present to that on a daily basis, on a moment to moment basis, that piece alone can shift everything. I mean, it's
Yeah.
definitely part of my practice, in my prayers in the morning is I thank God for my breath. I thank God for my health. I thank God for my body. I thank God to be alive in this body at this moment, at this time.
Mm,
And it helps me see the world through a different set of eyes where I'm just, walking with more gratitude.
mm,
Um,
yeah.
and so that makes me wonder. So during COVID, which was not that long ago, I mean, obviously it's still COVID, but
Yeah.
the real days of
Yeah.
COVID,
Yeah.
where you were still working in the tech industry, you hadn't transitioned into your coaching career just yet.
That's right. That's right. I was in my last and final tech job. So
Hmm.
I started at Apple, then I went to Google, then I went to Tumblr, then I went to Airbnb, and finally I was at Lyft. And so I was at Lyft
Hmm.
before COVID working on autonomous vehicles. So
Hmm.
AI, basically,
Hmm.
how do we use AI to create autonomous vehicles at scale, such that we get to a point in the world where you can request a ride with a fully driverless car to take you from A to B
Mhm.
wherever you are in the world, in whatever city you are. So this was like early time horizon stuff. I mean, sorry, long time horizon. Like I'm in the
Mm.
future, 10 years in the future, thinking about 5, 10 years, how are we going to arc the story as a marketer on how do we get people comfortable requesting a ride and getting
Mhm.
into this vehicle with no human driver. Like there's a big
Sure.
delta, there's a big gap we have to close.
Mhm.
And then COVID hit March 2020, and it became very clear. First of all, rides dropped 90%.
Of course.
Nobody's riding. And then
Mhm.
later that year, a couple months later, the George Floyd things happens, and then the tornadoes and the fires. And so you have the nexus of all of these things happening at the company. And I noticed something very interesting happen is that the nexus of all these traumatic events was causing people to leaders especially to become dysregulated in the room. Most
Mm.
people are making decisions out of anger and anger and fear never give good advice. And it
Mhm.
became clear to me in these rooms as I was stepping up to lead work with the CDC to figure out, okay, what's our rideshare policy? We're going to require masks. How often are we cleaning the cars? Are we blocking people from the front seat? No more shared rides. Do we put plastic partitions in the front and the back? What do we do about air conditioning? Figuring out what were all the policies we needed to put together to deploy to make sure people were safe as they got around.
Mhm.
And I quickly realized doing this work that, oh, wow, look to my left, look to my right. So many people are dysregulated. And it's because there is something showing up that's not allowing them to get grounded and centered. And so I think in that moment for me, I really, I decided, I had an aha moment where I decided, okay, my job is not to be in this company right now figuring out what the copy is for a push notification that says Susie's here in a yellow Honda, make sure you're outside with your mask on before you get in the ride.
Mhm.
Me writing that copy in comparison to the grandeur of what was really going on, what I started to see was
Mhm.
such that I felt compelled to walk away from the corporate job and to double down on coaching and say, I think what I'm really inspired to do is to sit beside these people who are struggling to make decisions from a regulated, powerful, brave, conscious space. And I'm going to train them and teach them and coach them and guide them such that they can go back into those jobs and be able to do that. And that began as a mustard seed of an idea. I left the job, I started taking phone calls, and then, one client became two, two became three, three became four. And this thing started growing. And very quickly, the universe sort of signaled to me, hey, this could be a thing. Like, this could
Mm.
be a real thing in a world where I never felt the possibility for myself that I could own anything. The story that I was told growing up was I have to get into a good college. I have to get into a corporate job. My identity is my work. Don't you leave that job.
Mm.
Lots of people said to me, don't you leave that job. I mean, you're making good money. Don't walk away from that. How could you? And it was like, well, this isn't it. My heart this whole
Mm.
time has been telling me that this wasn't it, that there was something else that my life was destined for. And it
Mhm.
wasn't until that I started to slow down and listen to what it was telling, my heart was telling me, where I started to
Mhm.
move in that direction. And that was a plethora of health modalities, meditation, Vipassana meditation, learning
Mm.
how to do the inner work, plant medicine, journaling, gratitude, learning how to become aware of my thoughts and recognize that I am not my thoughts, but I am the awareness behind my thoughts was the big shift for me that came out of
Mm.
COVID. In a world where I saw these death numbers every day at Lyft, we would have a presentation with the executive team of, right, all right, what's going on? What are the impacts to rides? What are the impacts, so on and so forth. And I was in charge of updating the death counts, the core numbers
Wow.
on the first slides. So every day, how many people were dying, how many people were infected, how many people were hospitalized, what percentage of our staff were in a situation, so
Wow.
on and so forth. And so, very real. When you are up against doing that every single day for 365 days, you start to question, like, what am I doing here? Like, what is my
Mhm.
purpose? I'm literally copy pasting these numbers from New York Times onto our deck. I think there's something else calling on my life in this moment. And that is where the journey began or
Mm.
continued or made a pivot.
Mm, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think, yeah, pivot's a great word for it, as is the path of our dharma, right? It's constantly pivoting, it's constantly seeing where the universe is pushing us into a different direction, and then choosing to do that deep inner work, that so many
Yeah.
folks don't choose to do. um yeah, it's interesting. I was coaching someone at Lyft during the pandemic as well, so maybe even someone that you were working with. So I was seeing how that was going down for that particular company. And I can't imagine what that was like to be so much on the front zone of reporting
Yeah.
those stats. I mean, man, it was like, some of us could choose to avoid listening to that, except for every now and then pay attention to it when we needed to. But to be looking at that on a daily basis, I could see how that would really impact you. Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'm so grateful that you did move into this world, because to me, from an outside perspective, you were so well suited for it. You were such a light. And I'm grateful that you are bringing mindfulness to the tech world, to a space that needs it very desperately, in my opinion, because of the incredible impact that tech has on our society, which is
Yeah.
seemingly to only grow exponentially. Which brings me to AI. We talked about the possibility of going into some AI stuff. So I'd love to hear some of your take on AI. I think I mentioned to you in a text that I did that opening question for Chat
Yeah.
GPT. So I want to just start with that before we get into the
Do
AI, just
it.
because it's so fun. And,
Do
this
it.
topic is one that can be, I don't know, uncomfortable or freaky for some listeners, perhaps. So let's start a little on the light
Yeah.
side, which is my cousin, Elizabeth. She loves my podcast and she loves my opening question. And so she was playing with Chat GPT, and she decided to ask it what their drag avatar would be. So this is the response from Chat GPT.
Let's do it.
As an AI language model, I don't have a personal identity or preferences, but if I were to create a drag avatar that reflects my capability as a language model, I might choose the persona of the linguist queen. This persona would be all about celebrating language and communication with a focus on both beauty and the power of words. The linguist queen would have a sleek modern look with a sharp business-like wardrobe featuring power suits and bold accessories. She would have a commanding presence on stage, using her mastery of language to entertain and inspire her audiences. Her performances might involve spoken word poetry, rap battles, even a game show style competition where audience members are challenged to come up with the most creative and unexpected words or phrases. Overall, the linguist queen would embody the idea that words are not just tools for communication, but also sources of inspiration, creativity, and joy. Work, Chat GPT, linguist
Yes.
queen. I was so impressed with
Wow, that
that.
is yes, that is articulate AF.
Yes, and she was like, "Oh, give me another one." And then ChatGPT gave some other ones that were equally like eloquent and interesting, and like in the
Yeah,
drag language. And so there's so much exciting possibilities that can come with AI, and with ChatGPT in
yeah,
particular. I know that you've got some connection there. Um, and there's also a lot of people freaked out about this whole thing. So what have you been
yeah,
sharing to help bring it all into perspective, as someone who's been around AI and in
yeah,
this future world, as you mentioned, for a long time now?
yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that and for acknowledging both sides of the house, because I think there are
Mm,
people who are big proponents of it, and then there are people who are worried. And the truth is both are true. We know this as coaches, right? Life is
mm-hmm,
50-50. There's good and bad in
mm,
everything. And so I'd say take a breath, first of all, because I know the world is moving faster than our capacity to manage, and the noise of AI and the opportunity with AI is such that everybody is entering the space, and there's hysteria with more hysteria, and we're all just feeling like we're becoming hysterical.
mm,
I think it, in its simplest form, it is another very powerful tool. And I think the opportunity is to learn how to use the tool and not get used by the tool.
Mm.
Just like social media, just like social media.
Yep.
I think we've learned from social media, or we're learning from social media about the impacts of being able to build such a large, powerful algorithmic platform that can sway how people show up in their lives. And so I understand that a lot of the reservation is also coming from the energy of this, of like, ooh, what is this going to do? Are we going to, are we going to kill ourselves? So on and so forth. And I think the truth is it does us, those who are worried, who are smart and heart-centered and connected, we have a duty to stay awake and stay aware and stay curious.
Mm.
Because if we go silent and we reject the technology, if we outwardly refuse it and choose not to engage with it, it's here and it's going to infuse itself into everything. I mean, remember the days of the flip phone or the car phone, and how iPhones have become so commonplace. I mean, the same is true for AI. You can't imagine not using your cell phone or your laptop to do your work today. Of course, you need those devices, much in the same way you will need AI. And I think one way to consider looking at it is as a powerful tool, a cape, a
Mm.
creative assistant, a guide, a thought partner, a thinking partnership. How can you look at the technology as a thinking partnership such that it can help you unblock yourself when you're trying to write or trying
Mm.
to clarify a business objective or trying to get another set of ideas to sharpen maybe your biography or what your
Mm.
product offering is or how you're trying to communicate something to somebody. And so, yes, there are worries about destruction, and there are smart people who are doing what they can do right now to start to facilitate conversation around regulation, because regulation does
Mm.
need to happen. I do believe that this is tantamount to the introductions of nuclear technology and how we had to
Mm.
all come together to find a way to manage it and contain it and set guard rules and ground rules. I think the
Mm.
same is true for AI. And that is, in fact, the reason why Chat GPT was rolled out. In fact, Sam Altman, the creator of Chat GPT, is a very good friend of mine. We've known each other for over a decade. And so, well before his name has graced every cover of every magazine, this man has been, we've meditated together, we've done the
Mm.
work, he's done the work. He has he has been thinking about this moment for a very long time, that entire team. And so the
Mm.
intention for putting it out there was to say this is the tip of the iceberg and this is a bit of what is possible. Let's now have conversations about what this looks like to regulate this and to use it in service of bettering humanity as
Mm.
opposed to getting it in the hands of bad actors. The other thing that I would say related is the problem with this technology is when it gets in the hands of bad actors whose intention is negligent or coming from a place of fear and anger. That's
Mm.
our job as coaches and practitioners and spiritual thinkers and healers, is
Mm.
to try and heal the world and heal people as quickly as possible so that they can look at this technology and learn how to embrace it and use it in service of making the world better as opposed to using it in service of destroying, right? So I
Mm.
guess that's kind of what I would say is two things. One, how do you start to think of it as a tool and incorporating it as a tool akin to a phone or akin to a laptop or akin to any kind of tool that would make your life easier, to stay curious and play with it and just
Mm.
become familiar with it. And the second piece is to stay aware of yourself and to recognize that in a world where fake fake news and media and the rate at which AI is happening, it is more important than ever before for people who are awakened and conscious and clear to
Mm.
stay that way and to not move into anger and resistance and fear and
Mm.
worry around this technology, but to stay awake and aware at the table so that we can continue to have conversations that will help make sure that we have set the guardrails for this new technology as we bring it to the masses. That was a long
Awesome.
answer, but
Oh
hopefully.
no, so good. Such helpful perspective and information. And you made a comparison to social media, and what comes up for me is this thought of there's a lot of people on social media who are advocates uh, for mindfulness, for cultivating spiritual lives, for self-growth and who are bringing some really incredible information and positive perspectives out into the world. And those counteract the people who are using social media for some shitty things, who are like speaking negative or telling lies. And so in the same way that it's important that mindful spiritual folks show up and use social media as a platform to spread these positive messages, in some ways to counteract those using it for negativity, we also, as spiritual mindful folks, need to be with this AI movement so that it doesn't just land in the hands of
Yeah.
the folks who are looking
Yeah.
to misuse it.
Yeah. And I think the real important piece is AI is not going to take your job in and of itself. But
Mm-hmm.
what will happen over time is that those who know how to use AI will take your job. Because what AI is going to do, it's going to amplify what it is that you already know how to do. So, one real
Mm-hmm.
clear example of this is leaving a big tech company and go becoming a solopreneur has had growing pains.
Mm-hmm.
Many people listening are probably familiar with that if you've made the transition to become your own boss or coach or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, what have you. And one of the things I have learned to love about the technology is that it's now a creative thought partner. So when I was in a room, when I was in a hallway and I was bumped up against copy line ideas, I could walk down the hallway, grab the UX researcher and say, "Hey, can we get into
Mm-hmm.
the whiteboard for 10 minutes? This is a tagline. I'm not sure it's there. I need to generate a few more ideas. Can we just go in the room and brainstorm for a few minutes?" Boom, I could do that. As a solopreneur, it's harder to do
Yeah.
something like that. But
Yeah.
what I can do is instead of sulking it and then question, should I have gone back into a company? Do I need a team? Do I need all this? What about
Mm-hmm.
this? I can't do this. So I need to hire. I can now say, okay, let me run this through Chat GPT. Hey, give me
Mm-hmm.
some options. All right, I like this, but not that. And you cherry pick
Mm-hmm.
and you play with it, and it becomes a creative thought partner
Mm-hmm.
where you can bounce things around and use it to make yourself stronger. And the
Mm-hmm.
writing that I put on LinkedIn is my writing. Have I used ChatGPT to push an idea or to help
Mm-hmm.
me find a right word or two? Yes. Is it a copy and paste? No. And you do see those people. And when you do see
Mm-hmm.
those people, you can feel the energy of like, what is this really?
Totally.
Because ChatGPT is an imperfect thing. I mean, it's
Yeah.
growing and it's learning. But so the intention isn't to double it down to we're not reducing ourselves to just typing a query
Yeah.
and copy pasting. It's more of a thought partner exercise. We try
Yeah.
a sentence here, a word here, maybe this structure. Show me three other structures to affirm that, you know what, I like my structure better than these. Or maybe I like this piece and that piece, and I want to bring them together.
Yeah.
And I think when you look at it from that perspective, it can add a lot of value. Although the media will have you think that a lot of the dramatization of the robots and the this and the that
Mm-hmm.
will dissuade you from playing with it. But you know, I think that that is an oversimplified view of the situation, and to not use the tool or to resist it because you're worried that some robot is going to take over,
Mm-hmm.
is we're a long ways from that. And I will tell you that there are a lot of smart people working very hard to solve that problem.
Mm.
And by us using the technology and speaking what we feel about it, we're continuing to provide inputs to those people
Yep.
about how to shape the technology.
Yep. Yeah, wonderful. So what I hear in that is a real invitation to recognize that it's not about it replacing us, but it's about us being with it, dancing with it, and
Yes.
making good use of it. Um, I'm curious what you can imagine might be the impact of AI on spirituality. This might be around AI, as you can imagine, it might not just be about the AI that's present now, but
Yeah.
how might AI impact the spiritual movement?
Yeah, it's a beautiful and broad question. And the first thing that comes to mind is I actually think this could be a beautiful opportunity for people to start to do more inquiry. I think you can I think it's going to call into question people's identity and their connection to the self and that which is greater than themselves. Because a lot of mediocre work is going to go away, I think. I
Mhm.
think the robot will be able to do a lot of that. And so, what I like to say to my clients is there's no map anymore. In the 60s and 70s, if you got hired for a job, you'd get a book, you have a map. It's do this, do this, do this. It's managers, it's meeting spec. Can you do these 10 things or at this with this time? It's meeting spec. Those things will get little by little over time automated. There's no map anymore, but there's a compass, and the compass is internal, and the compass has to be calibrated and nurtured and grounded. And we lead from that compass. What is that compass? I call it my spiritual GPS. It's my inner wisdom, the inner knowing, the part of me. If anyone else is a marketer out there, this, you're attuned to this when you read a brief or watch a piece of creative, where you're trying to marry the strategy to the outward creative. There's a feeling that you evoke, and you can feel the tingling sensation of that when you're deciding, are we going to put this ad out into the world or not? But all of us have this. How many times have you met somebody and you're like, I don't know what it is, I'm just not feeling that person. Like, I'm just not into that. I don't know what it is, but I want to go left and not right, or I want this and not this. It just doesn't feel right. That is your spiritual GPS. And my hope is that AI invites human beings to explore more of that inquiry, compassionate inquiry, self-reflection, in a world where they no longer have to push paper, but they now have to be more thoughtful and strategic. They don't have to follow the map, but they have to listen and pay attention to their compass and let that guide you. That's an optimistic view of this, but I really do think that can come from this. I really do think it's an opportunity for people we need to make the spiritual practical. We need to bring spirituality back. We sort of sucked it out, and I don't begin to know the history of this, but I do recognize that we've withdrawn a lot from that. That's one thing I love about Oprah, and I've watched her catalog of interviews to understand what makes her so great. And one of the things that makes her so great was her connection to source, to God, to recognizing that she is a spiritual being having a human experience, really fully, truly embodying that. And from that space is where everything else came from that. And I really relate to that. And I'm sure you do too, because that's doing the work, right? That's when you start to awaken and realize you're no longer the pilot of your life. You're the co-pilot, and source and spirit is in the driver's seat. And your job is to make decisions from that place. You have to query the AI. You have to give it a question. Before there isn't even a question, there is an intention for the question. The intention propels the question and propels the outcome. And I think that comes from the spiritual GPS, the intention of what are we trying to do? There's a question intelligence that you're going to have to put into the machine and be really intentional and thoughtful and considered. And it has to come from your compass. And I think if we learn how to hone that, that could be a big unlock for people.
Hell yeah. Oof, I love this. And it is a very hopeful, but also realistic set of possibilities. This idea, the big thing that I'm taking away is this idea that as AI takes over some of these jobs that people have kind of just plugged into, that it's calling in and inviting folks to really step more into their dharma, into their true purpose, because they no longer are able to just, copy and paste themselves into these cookie cutter job peripheries, that instead they're going to have to ask, actually, what is it that I'm called to do on this planet? Because the robot's going to take care of that other thing that just pays the bills. What am I truly called to do? And that's exciting, because ultimately following your dharmic path, in my perspective, is an incredibly spiritual process, and requires support from spirit. It requires us, as you mentioned, connecting with our spiritual GPS. It requires us to do that internal work so that we can then connect with who we truly are and what we are here to do and how we are here called to serve. And it's my belief that when the world becomes full of people who are truly living in their dharma, who have taken this spiritual path to discover their dharma and to live in it and be serving their purpose, that's when we're going to find harmony on this planet in a way that has never been experienced before.
Yes. And when you have a collective of people who are living out their dharma, they will use the technology to serve the world, to
Mm-hmm.
create fusion, new types of electricity and technology, to create new types of treatment for cancer, to create new types of,
Yes.
you name it, X, Y, and Z. When we are aligned with that and we are fully expressed and we've done the work to heal, then we can learn how to use it for good.
Mm.
And I think that's the real shift that's happening that I see. And that's really why I left tech, is because there's a healing generation that is
Mm.
unprecedented, that is emerging right now.
Mm.
And the race from my head is to heal people faster than the technology advances. That our work here
Mm.
is to heal people so that we are no longer carrying around the weight, because trauma that is not processed gets projected. And it is so much easier for us to inflict pain on other people than to feel it and heal it ourselves. And the
Mm.
work to be done, from my point of view, is to heal people so that they can make decisions from a place of love. In which case,
Mm.
when you are whole and you own your story and you are grounded in your source, you're not there out there trying to hurt the world. You're
Mm-hmm.
not talking shit about people. You're not trying to block bills, block people from
Mm.
their rights. You're not trying to do harm from that space. You only want love. You only want what is pure.
Mm.
And um, I think that's the work for us to do. And it's not going to be easy, because
Mm.
unfortunately there are bad actors out there, and they are already using AI to generate deep fakes. And the election, I'm not going to lie, is going to be tough. They see it in
Mm.
the writings on the wall. There's going to be a lot of misinformation,
Wow.
and it will be important for us to be the truth, to
Mm.
have an unwavering commitment to finding and communicating and becoming the truth and
Mm.
staying in alignment with the truth. And that's our job. That's the work to be done.
Yeah. As the stakes get higher, this call to arms becomes stronger and more important.
Yeah. And so for
Ooh.
me, how I'm using the AI, just quickly, is
Yeah.
knowing who I am and what I want, what I know to be true. How do I use the technology to unblock me and continue to get me to move forward, take the next step, and then the next
Mm.
step, and then the next step, as I align myself with my dharma and what it is that I'm here to be.
Mm.
Anytime I bump up again against an excuse, oh, well, I don't know how to do my taxes. Okay, well, you're gonna, now you have an experiment. You're gonna go take 15 minutes, open that fucking Chat GPT and do some
Mm-hmm.
searches and see if you can unblock yourself. Oh, I
Mm.
don't know about this. I'm not. Oh, I've been stumbling on my bio. It has to be 250 words. I have to talk
Mm.
about these two things. And it's like, okay, well, do a draft, put that shit in Chat GPT, do a query, see what you can find, make some stuff. Oh, I don't want to apply for this conference event because there's so many things I have to fill out in the form. I'm not going to meet the deadline. It's too much work. No, I'm not doing that anymore. So now I'm
Mm.
trying to use it as a tool to help me channel what it is that I've come here to do.
Yes, it's an unblocker. I love
It's an
that.
unblocker.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, such good stuff. And I hope that folks listening feel a little more hopeful, a little more optimistic about some of the possibilities of this tech that is here. That's their resistance is futile at this point,
Yeah.
and so it's our opportunity to choose a perspective to be with it in a good way. And I feel like what you've shared can really help people frame what that might look like. So I'm really
Mm.
grateful for you for sharing those perspectives. As we wrap up, what final words would you like to share with listeners? Anything that you would like to, any advice or wisdom you'd like to offer?
Hmm. Uh, I think the most important relationship that we will ever have is the one that we have with ourselves. And it is our job and our duty and our responsibility to do the work to heal.
Mm.
And I spent so many of my years as a gay man running up the corporate ladder, doing drug infused parties on the weekend, partying too hard, fighting monsters, pushing down difficult emotion that I didn't want to feel, choosing to buffer or numb that emotion and avoid doing the work. And there will come a time, if there isn't already, there will come a time where the universe will grab you by the shirt and pull you up close and whisper in your ear, I'm not fucking around anymore.
Mm.
You need to do the work and heal, because this armor is no longer serving you. It's heavy, it's exhausting, and it's preventing you from the full expression of your gift. And that's what we all need right now. We all need to
Mm.
step into the fullness of ourselves, because if we don't, then the technology will come for us. If we are
Mm.
not healed and we are not grounded and we do not fully, we stay small. So I think that's the big opportunity for everyone listening, is continuing. If you are doing the work and you're on the path, great, stay on the path, keep at it. If you're not yet and you're looking for a whisper, then maybe this is your whisper from the universe
Mm.
to take the first step. However, that actually you are taking the first step by listening to this.
Mm.
So congratulations for taking the first step,
Mm.
because that's really the work to do. So
Mm.
that comes up for me.
Hell yeah. And when those opportunities come, that resistance come, put on that Tina Turner wig and get on the stage. Take action and
Yes.
alchemize.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Julio. This has been a total pleasure, a total honor. Thank you for all that you do in the world,
Oh,
and
likewise, my friend.
blessings,
Thank
brother.
you.